All right, Kip, what's going on? Glad to be joining you for another AMA. You guys are as well. Hopefully, today.
Yeah, it was a good day. I'm having a good day so far. Good weekend. Can't complain, right? Or at least we shouldn't.
I mean, you can like
Yeah,
everybody can complain, but it's not going to do any good.
yeah,
So nobody cares. It's not moving the needle, so it's just
yeah,
wasted energy at that point complaining about stuff.
yeah. Well, and it's amazing how much happiness sometimes I think about is just tied to just being grateful, just having some gratitude for what you got. But it's interesting because sometimes that being overly grateful and satisfied with what you have affects our willingness to like push the needle forward. So there may be a little bit of a dichotomy there.
Yeah, I know a lot of successful people who rest on their laurels. I've done it too. I'm not immune to it. You have some
Yeah.
level of success on some front, some metric, and then you're like, cool, I've arrived. And then you just settle into complacency and mediocrity, except for success is perishable. So you don't get to just ride your coattails or anybody else's because you forget what you were doing and also you stop what you were doing, which means that you're not coasting. I should say you're not on cruise control, but it's like coasting. Eventually, if you let off the gas, like you're going to stop. It's
Yeah,
just a
the
matter
car
of
will
time.
eventually slow down. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's just jump right into the questions, man. We got a lot, and we usually BS and waste a bunch of time, but man, I don't want to. Let's just get right into questions and see how many we can answer. It looks like we had some good ones. You sent them to me a little bit earlier, so we've had a chance to at least go through them and do a quick overview, and I think we'll be able to come up with some great answers for the guys and get them on the path they need to be.
Sounds good. These questions will be fielding from the Facebook group. To join us there, facebook.com/group/order of man. Our first question, Caleb Gary, how to continually stay motivated to be in the gym between work, family, and ball games. There never seems to be enough time.
Those are two different issues, right? So you have time management and you have
Mm,
motivation issues.
yeah.
Look, I'll break it apart and answer them individually. The motivation thing, I never understood that. I never understood that. Who started to perpetuate this lie that you always needed to be motivated to do something? You don't. You just need to do it because you said you would do it. So focus on why it's important to you, why you're doing it in the first place, and since you made that decision, then just do it. And here's one way that you can start to build up that practice of doing it regardless of how you feel, is doing it regardless of how you feel. And if you do it in other areas of your life, so let's say it's motivated to go into the gym. Well, there's other things that you may not want to do. Maybe you don't want to have that conversation, make that phone call, send that email, do that chore, finish that project, whatever that may be. If you do it, you prove to yourself that you're capable of acting despite how you might feel about taking that action. And then you build up the muscle of determination, grit, fortitude, resiliency, and a lot of these virtues that kind of tie in together when it comes to just doing something you don't feel like doing. So build the muscle, prove it to yourself, become that kind of man, and stop looking for everything to be motivating. That's the problem, really, is we've got this belief in society that we always need to be entertained. Like, entertain me, even now on the podcast. Entertain me, please, entertain me. Because I can't sit still without being entertained or without laughing or without it being fun and exciting. Look, sometimes it's not. So what? Just do it because you know it's going to move the needle. Just do it. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, regarding time management, yeah, you do have a lot going on. So does everybody else. So do the guys that you see who go to the gym every single day. They have a lot going on, and yet they make it work because they sacrifice. You can't, it's the adage, you can do anything, you just can't do everything. So you need to decide what's going to go. Maybe you need to wake up a little bit earlier or go to bed a little later so you can get into the gym then. I know, Kip, for example, with you, you train jujitsu during the day on your lunch break. I don't know what that looks like necessarily, but if you have to bring a sack lunch and just down a few things right after you're done doing jujitsu, then that's what you do because it's important to you and you make it work because it's a priority. So be more efficient with the time that you have. Start developing skills so you can get paid more for the same amount or less work. So you're not having to bang your damn head against the wall trying to earn a paycheck, living paycheck to paycheck, and then manage your time more effectively. Learn to say no to the things that aren't a priority, and just be a little creative and make it work. If you want to make it work, you'll make it work. So
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Really, I think the time is just an excuse. Because if you think about it, like I can relate to Caleb in this scenario in the sense of, man, I got work, I got family, I got all these things. And when I think about going to the gym, I don't want to. Why?
Right, but that's different than time management.
Exactly. But I think that's why time is the excuse, because we're like, well, if I had more time, then I'd be motivated to go. But I feel burnt out and now I don't want to go. So he probably can. It's just he doesn't want to, right? Because so much is going on. He feels overwhelmed, right?
Well, let's come up with a different perspective. Let's say that Caleb, instead of having 24 hours a day, he had 25 hours a day. Would he still be asking the same question? Yes.
Yeah.
He would still be asking the same question. Oh, I only have 25 hours in the day and I got to sleep and I've got family and I've got this and I've got, yeah, but you have an hour more than anybody else. I know, but like, I just have so much going on. We all do. Yeah. So it's not that you don't have the time. It's that you may not be managing that time correctly.
Yeah. All right, Jason Fortried, where do you see the situation in Virginia going? So maybe I should have asked you, this is a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
do you recall?
Yeah.
Do you want to go over this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go over it.
Okay.
Look,
all right.
I don't know all of the specifics and ramifications, so I am speaking a little bit out of ignorance here, but Ralph Northam is trying to pass legislation for gun confiscation, essentially. And there was a huge rally several weeks ago in Virginia, and obviously it was against gun control and restriction because that is a constitutional right. I'm so sick and tired of these politicians swearing to uphold the Constitution and then enacting all these laws and rules and regulations and everything else that are at direct odds with the Constitution. It infuriates me to no end. And we as citizens of this country ought to protect and defend that Constitution against these politicians who can't seem to get it through their thick skulls. They don't get to decide what rules and laws and constitutional credos they get to follow and which ones they don't. The Constitution is the Constitution. You follow it or you get out or you're removed peacefully or, heaven forbid, but maybe violently if needs be as well. Like, we have an obligation and a responsibility to protect our way of life, to protect the Constitution, and to fight against, by any means necessary, those who perpetuate ideas, beliefs, rules, regulations that are direct odds with our Constitution. And that's how I feel about it. So to see tens of thousands of people show up in the state capitol and voice their opinion in a peaceful way, in a respectful way, within the confines of the laws of the land is a very, very powerful message that we won't be pushed around, we won't be bullied, and we won't be submitting our rights to those people who are misguided in their application of constitutional laws. It like I said, it infuriates me, and we need to stand up. Unfortunately, the people who are doing it right don't speak out enough. So we hear from all these social justice warriors, and we hear from these third-wave feminists, and we hear from just these delusional, deranged people that are out yapping in the streets about who knows what, acting just completely disgusting. And we're supposed to believe, because of the media coverage, that this is the way people are. Well, the normal human beings, the overwhelming majority, I would say, of us are working, we're leading our families, we're coaching our kids' baseball teams, we're at the gym, we're engaged in hobbies that are wholesome, that are uplifting and edifying to us and people around us. Like, we're doing good, but we hear all these yappy little people over here that want to just completely pervert our way of life. And it's about time that we, the overwhelming majority of people who are rational and logical and sane and want to do good, start speaking up so we don't get overrun by the minority who's willing to speak out.
Well, and it's so shocking that politicians are not aware of the silent majority.
No, they are aware, I think.
But why pander then to the minority in that example?
Because it gets attention.
Because they gets attention. Yeah.
Right. We live in an attention economy. And so, man, Order of Man could be so much further down the I don't want to say it like that. could be so much more widespread if all I cared about was attention.
Yeah. Because then
right?
we could do controversial topics
like
and
bullshit I don't even
get some
believe,
quick
and put a
sound
bunch of
bites.
hot chicks on my Instagram page with little clothing. Like that would do really well. Or I could, like, we swear a little bit, right? But I could be vile and disgusting and filthy in my language, and it would get attention. But there is such a thing as getting noticed for the wrong reason. I know the adage is, no, there's no bad press or no bad coverage. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, it's bad for your character. It's bad for the mission.
and it's bad for the mission. Exactly. And ultimately, because it's bad for the mission, it's bad for society, because our mission to reclaim and restore masculinity is intertwined with the common good of society.
Yeah, and far greater than just popularity and getting views.
Right. So here's what I would say about our mission specifically, and ask right here is share it. Guys, share. All right. We're not going to get the notoriety of a lot of these organizations that are willing to be controversial for the sake of controversy, or have these like risque or whatever, right? Like we're not going to do that. So we're not going to get as much press. So I feel like it's your obligation to share. Like if you have information that will help somebody and you believe in it, then why the heck aren't you sharing? And a lot of you are. I'm not suggesting you aren't, but if you get value from what we're doing here, share the podcast with a friend. Like just send them a text. Hey, listen to this podcast, or listen to this podcast at minute mark 10 and hear what they're talking about. Like this makes a ton of sense. Or share something on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, or leave a rating and review. There's so many ways to do this. Stop being silent about it. Like you have an obligation to share information, whether it's Order of Man or some other organization or movement or thought or book or whatever. If you think it's going to help somebody, then open your mouth and start sharing so that we can spread this mission and we can move the needle in the right direction.
Love it. Call to action, guys. All right, Joe Marshall, if you're further along in your journey than a friend, loved one, brother, how do you act as an inspiration to motivate them, light a fire under their ass?
I hate to give this answer because I've said it so much, but it's just be an example. It's be a lighthouse.
Yeah.
Right? Like you be the best person, the best version of yourself that you possibly can, and invite this individual to join you. That's all you can do. So if there's something you found, like activity or an interest or a hobby or a pursuit or a book or a podcast or whatever, like we were talking about earlier, that you feel like is serving you and helping you become a more effective, capable, fulfilled, satisfied husband, father, business owner, community leader, fill in the blank, then invite that individual into your circle. I think we ought to be very, very careful of going into that individual space, right? Like the analogy I once heard is that if you have a white glove and you go into the pig pen with the pigs, like they're not going to get clean because you have a white glove. Your white glove is going to get dirty and muddy and filthy, right? Because you're walling around in pig shit. Don't go into their circle, invite them into your circle, and then have the expectation and the standard for their behavior, because that will edify and uplift them. And then they get to make the decision. Is this a circle I want to be around? Am I motivated by these guys? Do I want to improve? And if they do, and they're willing to adhere to either the unspoken or written rules of the circle you're running in, then they get to stick around. And if they're not willing to do that, then they don't get to stick around. But ultimately, that's their decision. So we need to be very good at pushing decisions back on other people. Hey, I invite you. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're moving forward. Here's the good we're doing. Here's the activities we're involved in. And here's how we're going to push each other. And here's how we're holding each other accountable. Come join us and do it our way. If that individual wants to do it your way, great. Welcome to the fold. If that individual is not interested in doing it your way, doesn't necessarily make him a bad person or a weak person or an a-hole or whatever else. Like you don't need to attack that guy. It just means that for whatever reason, he's not willing to abide by what you and your boys are willing to abide by. And therefore he's made the decision that he doesn't want to be part of your circle. That's his responsibility, not your responsibility. Because what a lot of people will think, they'll think that if you don't, let's say you invite somebody into your circle and you're going to go run a marathon together, and you're all going to train, you're going to hold each other accountable to doing it, and this guy isn't pulling his weight, okay? You might believe that if you kick him out of your circle, that you're making the decision to kick him out of the circle. No, you're not. As long as you communicate the standard and the expectations up front, If that individual is making the conscious decision not to engage the way that you and your guys are engaging, you're not making the decision to remove him. He's making that decision himself. He made it, not you. So let those people make their decisions and then hold them accountable to the expectations that you've set, which means that you've got to have expectations and you've got to have standards, and you have to communicate these standards with the people that you care about. If you're holding to some like weird, loose idea of what it is you're trying to do, or you know what you want to do, but you're not willing to communicate it to other people and they're not living to that standard, that's your fault, not theirs.
Yeah.
You uphold the standard by the standard you defined, and then let there be consequences to not living in accordance with the standard you've agreed upon.
Yeah. And I shouldn't have to point this out, but obviously this is applicable to the workplace, right? Is set expectations, Definitely. Communicate them to your employees. If they need to leave the organization because they're not pulling their weight, it's their decision, right? By them not meeting the standards that has been clearly communicated. That's why that's so critical that we identify those OKRs or those objectives and roles and responsibilities and whatnot for our employees. Let me run this idea by you, Ryan, because I was just thinking about this the other day. In fact, I think I talked about it a little bit on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, where sometimes when I think about this guy, right, it's like, hey, how do I motivate other people? And I think for me, sometimes when I'm quote unquote on the path, it seems intense, right? It's like I'm head down, I'm working hard, I'm going home, I'm getting my honey-to-do items taken care of. I'm in super intentional. And sometimes that intentionality does not look fun. Like if someone was looking at me, they're not going, Kip's happy. I don't look like I'm enjoying myself. I'm just getting stuff done and I'm really intense about it, right? It's like my whole family assumes I'm pissed off whenever I'm cleaning the house, right? Because I'm just like, getting right at it. And I was thinking about this, how that's not inspiring. Yeah. At all. Like I could be getting after it and having great success in life and not be inspiring. Why? Because I'm walking around kind of pissed off with a chip on my shoulder and I'm so intense about getting everything done. That doesn't cause people to go, oh, I want what Kip has, because that doesn't look enjoyable at all.
Right.
Right. And so that's been really present for me of late. It's like, okay, I need to change how I show up. Like I can get all those things done and I can be progressing in multiple areas of my life, but I also have to be joyful and playful and having a good time. And that's what makes that appealing to my kids, to say, okay, I want some of that in my life, or appealing to those that I love. If I'm not joyful and happy, then why would they want to get on this path that I'm on?
Right. And what I hear a lot of guys say is, well, they're just mistaking it. It's intensity, it's drive, it's focus, and that's their fault. They're just mistaking it. Look, if that's your attitude, just be prepared for people not to follow you. And maybe that's okay. Maybe you're not worried about that. But if you are trying to inspire somebody like this gentleman is, to light a fire under somebody's ass and get them going, then the way you communicate and articulate a message and the way that you say things and how you present yourself, from the way that you look, the words that you use, the tone and inflection of your voice, the perception of your fulfillment and satisfaction and enjoyment in the process is going to be a factor that they consider as to whether or not they're going to follow you. So know who you're trying to lead and ask yourself, is this person going to be inspired by my demeanor, which I think speaks nicely to what you were talking about, Kip.
Yeah, demeanor. It's a big word for a Sal Severe boy, but
that's true. I get it. I get it. I learned that in Parowan, so it's like, why didn't you learn that in Sal Severe? Like, it seems like we were reading from the same textbooks, but whatever.
I'm not saying I pass English yet. Oh man. Well, and I'm not saying fake, right? Like, hopefully that maybe I should.
No, I don't think it comes across like that.
Yeah.
No, okay. I think people get what you mean.
Okay. Greg Rocky Walker, how can you lead your sister-in-law's family too if the husband won't?
It's not your job, man. Like, what are you going to do? Go in there and swoop in and white knight what was it? His sister-in-law?
Sister-in-law's family.
Yeah. Dude, that's not your responsibility. It's not even your place.
Yeah.
Like okay, so maybe you're an uncle to some nieces and nephews. Okay, well then be an uncle, be a great uncle. Don't be a dad, be a great uncle. Right? Like help where you can. Maybe fellowship this guy. Maybe he doesn't know how to behave. He's your family. He's not blood, but he's your family. So maybe you can help lead him. Invite him into your circle. Maybe he just doesn't have a path. Maybe he didn't have a mentor. Maybe he didn't have a father. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons this could be. And maybe you've already tried this. I don't know. But I'd be willing to give it a shot. Like if I saw my sister-in-law struggling, and because my brother-in-law was not around or doing what he needed to be doing, then like I would try to help him as much as he'd be willing to accept that help. But yeah, you're not a dad. You're not her husband. She's a big girl. He's a big boy. Do what you can to the degree that you can, and just be the best uncle, brother-in-law, etc. that you can be. That's a tough situation because you see things, and man, we jump into things that we just don't know anything about, and we end up putting them in a worse spot or ourselves in a worse spot. So just tread lightly. I commend you for wanting to help and be involved in that way, but just be very aware of how you're doing it and how it's being perceived by the people you are trying to serve. You know, I think the motive and the intention is good here. Just be careful in the way you go about doing it.
Okay. So Jason Fortried, really very much related questions here. What is the best way to lead at work when dealing with peers when you have no direct authority over them?
Just be the best damn employee ever. I had a really good conversation with, his name is Vincent. He goes by Rocco Vargas. The guy's a bit of a Renaissance man. He was a drill instructor, Army Ranger. He's an actor, a musician, an author. Like he's a barber. Like his resume is, his resume is amazing. He's a solid dude. And we were talking about, I wish I had my notes from that. He used a term, power base. And I'm like, well, what is that? Like, explain what that means. And what he had talked about, he said, we all have a power base, and that power base is what people perceive of us when we walk into a room, when they just perceive us or see us from a distance, or there's some sort of separation. It's this power base. And then our words and our behavior either solidify that power base or undermine that power base, right? So when we open our mouths and we spew a bunch of nonsense that doesn't make sense, then we're undermining our perceived power base. But if when we speak up, we do it clearly or articulately, and we do it with credibility and authority and influence, then it solidifies the perception that people have of us. So is it Jason?
Yeah.
Okay. So Jason has a power base with, or at least did, with his peers, with his subordinates, with other employees. He has this power base. And you don't need the title of leadership to be able to be a leader. You just need to make sure that your behaviors, your thoughts, your actions, your words, the way that you look, the way you carry yourself lines up and meshes perfectly with this power base. Because when it does, you will be a leader. You will influence these peers of yours, regardless of the fact as to whether or not you have a title or not. Yep. So that was a very cool concept that Vince shared with me. It's like, you have a power base. It's there, whether you want it or not, or whether you realize it or not. And all of your actions are undermining or solidifying power base. Build that up. Focus on that from the way that you communicate, the words you're using, your language, how articulate you are, how knowledgeable you are, even the way you look, and all of that will spill over into these employees being influenced positively or negatively. But that's within your control.
How is that power base established? What is that based upon?
Well, it's individual. It's subjective, right? Because it's a perception. It's not real.
Yeah.
Right. So all of us have a power base, but it's not objective. Meaning, if it was on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm just trying to codify this a little bit. If your power base is on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm not going to be a 10 to everybody I ever encounter.
Yeah. So it's based upon their preconceived notions and other things that they may
based
just
on
bring
their
to the
experiences.
table.
Look, I mean, I'll give you a prime example. A beard, right? Like some guys like my beard, other guys don't like it. And that's all probably based on past experiences. Some of them maybe their dad had a beard that looked just like mine and their dad abused them as a kid.
Yeah.
And so now they're like, okay, I'll give you a great example. There's a guy in the neighborhood and he's a great guy as far as I know. I don't know him real well, but a great guy. And he had a beard when I first met him. He had a beard and I did not like the guy at all. I didn't even meet him or interact with him, but I made a judgment call based on the way he looked in his beard. And I'm like, why did I do that? He looked like, when he had a beard, he looked like the guy that kidnapped Elizabeth Smart. He looked like him. And immediately I was like, that guy's bad. There's something off about this guy. There's something wrong. Like, I don't trust him. He's a pedophile. Like, I had all of these like preconceived notions based on a past experience. Now I've gotten to know this individual and he's not like that at all, which is probably more common, that our perceptions are off. But it's a great example to show you that the way that people interact with you, the way past people have treated you, says a lot about how they're going to perceive the way that you walk into a room and how you present yourself. So yeah, the power base is determined individually, and it's good to be aware of this, because then you can know, at least to some degree, how not to manipulate it, because there's some negative connotation with that, but mold it, shape it in a way that's going to be positive with other people, so you can impact them in a positive way.
Yeah. Very cool. When's that coming out? Do you have a date
that'll be
that
2
yet?
or 3 weeks. Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks.
Now.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Colin McDonald, how to start dating again as a single father. I work night and my days off are spent with my kids.
Well, that's good. That's where it should be, I think.
Yeah.
The advice that I would give you with dating again might be a little counterintuitive, but I found this to be true for me when I was in the dating scene, and I think it's true for a lot of guys. It's like, dating to me is like holding grains of sand in the beach, right? So you're at the beach and you pick up this scoop of sand and it's smooth and it's white and it feels really good. And you're like, man, I like this. This is cool. And what do? You squeeze it harder, right? So you hold onto it harder, squeeze it. And the harder that you squeeze it, what happens? The sand falls out of the little cracks and the little crevices. And eventually, if you squeeze hard enough or long enough, you're going to be found with no more sand left in your hand. This is dating. Because it's, and same thing holds true with business too, by the way. There's a really good book called The Selling Chronicles that illustrates this point a little bit. If you come across as like, I need a relationship, I want a relationship, I just want to find a good woman, like this is the thing I need, you're squeezing those grains of sand and it's all slipping through your fingers. Why? Because you look desperate. Yeah. And no woman worth having around is attracted to a desperate man. So it would be easy for me to say, well, you just need to appear not desperate. Except for you can't. If you're desperate, you can't appear not desperate. Because the things that you do and the things that you say and your demeanor is going to illustrate that you are indeed desperate, even though you're trying to game it and not be desperate. You actually have to not be desperate. How do you do it? By taking pride in who you are without a woman. Right? So going to the gym, getting in shape, reading good books, having great hobbies, surrounding yourself with solid men in your circle and influence, getting your finances under control, picking up new skills and information that's moving the needle. And the more you focus on yourself, the more attractive you're going to be. And you're not like squeezing the life out of the sand in your hand. What you're actually doing is you're presenting yourself, and people will be drawn to you because there's just something about this guy that he's got going on. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't position yourself and be in the right place, right? Like, you got to be in the right place. You got to be around the right women. You got to be around people and making connections and be somewhat available. But there's a line between availability and desperation. So my counterintuitive thought here is just stop. Just stop thinking about like, I got to get a relationship. Like, have a relationship with yourself. Make yourself the project. Put all of your attention and focus and energy into improving who you are, not just aesthetically, because that's what a lot of guys hear, right? They're like, oh, okay, so I just need to look better. I just need to have more money and drive a faster car. No,
Get
guys,
more
that's not what
swole.
right. That's not what I'm talking about. Like, the aesthetics are great. I'm talking about a deeply rooted security and comfort and confidence in who you are because you're doing the work required. The aesthetics will take care of themselves. The car and the money and the abs and the everything else, that'll take care of itself if you're doing the work. So do that work. Make yourself somewhat available. Find like where the type of women that you're attracted to are spending time, and I think you're gonna find a woman who appreciates and wants to be led by who you are as a man.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Where were you when I was single?
Yeah, you wouldn't have listened.
Although that sounded kind of weird, huh? Where were you, Ryan, when I was single? Yeah,
it did actually sound. Yeah.
All right, moving on.
It is funny because even in my financial planning practice, I would talk with people about money and their investments and everything else. And they say, where were you 10 years ago? I'm like, would you have listened 10 years ago? No, probably not. Well, so even if I was around, you wouldn't have acknowledged.
Well, and to be frank, it's like the opportunities to learn when you have to dig through it on your own is really priceless. So
if you're willing to learn from it, like the experience for the sake of experience of hardship is not good in and of itself. You actually have to be willing to learn from it.
Yeah.
Because I know a bunch of guys who have got wrecked in life and they keep beating their damn head against the wall because they're not willing to learn the lesson. And then they'll say things like, oh, my bosses are assholes. All the women I date are bitches. It's like, you're the only common denominator in this. So what's really going on here?
Totally. And just as a, I don't know, an illustration to your example, that's exactly how it was for me dating. I was constantly like, I put way too much weight on it, and constantly was in and out of relationships that just didn't feel right. I wasn't ready. And I actually thought, like, I was like, oh, I'm broken. I can't do this. And then it's when I let go of it all and just focused on myself that things just kind of aligned. So,
I mean, I had a very real world example of that. I remember when I was young, I used to get drunk a lot. I used to drink a lot of alcohol, and it was getting bad. Like I was legitimately an alcoholic. I never thought that, but like looking back, I was legitimately an alcoholic. And I remember I was at this party one night, and I was drunk, and I remember thinking to myself, like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, this is crazy. I was chasing girls, and I was drunk, and it just wasn't going anywhere. And in that moment of drunkenness, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't want to do this. This is gross. Like, it doesn't feel good. It's not moving. I'm done. I'm done with this. And that was the last drink. Well, I should say I probably had a drink since then, but like that was the last that I got like drunk, like shit-faced drunk. I was just done. It was like flipping a switch on the wall. I was done. And at that moment I said, I'm going to get sober. I'm going to work on my business. Like I'm just going to fix me. And not coincidentally, I met my wife very soon after, within probably a month or two. And we started dating, and man, I knew almost immediately that she was the one. I wasn't planning on that, but I positioned myself for it by fixing myself, by getting myself right and focusing on me, and the chips fell into place.
Yeah. And what's crazy is what opportunity could have passed you by if you didn't have that breakthrough and positioned yourself, and you would have passed up the opportunity of ever meeting her. And what opportunities constantly pass us by because we haven't positioned ourselves to be in a position to accept or to take on those opportunities.
To even recognize them. Like how many guys have you heard say, for example, oh man, some guys have all the luck, or if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have luck at all, or the rich get richer. I don't ever have opportunities. Dude, you have opportunities just like everybody else, but your behavior and your thoughts are representing a literal and figurative barrier between you and the opportunities that present themselves. Like you have a blindfold on. If you don't think you have opportunities, you're blinded by some thought or pattern or behavior. Take the blindfold off, unstrap yourself from the baggage that you're carrying around so you can actually see that the opportunities are abound. You just didn't recognize them before because the behavior you're engaged in, whether it's smoking or drinking or pornography or drug abuse or whatever, is actually the thing that's keeping you from seeing the opportunities that other men capitalize on, because they can see clearly. They're not blinded.
All right, Nick Hilton, best advice for switching from the public sector to the private sector. I am making a career change next week, leaving my job of 11 years as a police fire dispatcher and becoming a full-time sales rep for a leading fire apparatus manufacturer. I will have the entire state of New Hampshire as my region.
First, congratulations. I think that's awesome. You're pursuing something that sounds like it's meaningful to you, that'll push you in the right direction. I think that's great. I've never really held a government job outside of the military, so that's the experience and the background I'm coming from. So take this for what it is when I say it. But I think especially if you're moving into a sales position, you're probably not going to have as much authority over you as you're potentially used to. Right? Like I know my time in the military, we were told what the mission was. We were told what time to get up. We were told what our standard operating procedures and rules of engagement were. We were told where to be, when to be, how to do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so all you had to do is be a robot. Like quite literally, it's like, just do what you're told. That's it. You're told to do this, do that. And if you do that, then you get promotions. It's nice. It works out. But in the private sector, especially on the sales side of things, you're not going to have that oversight. You might have that initially, right? You might have some training that you need to go through. You might have some sort of a partner that goes with you and teaches you and trains you and gets you up to speed. You might have some of that. But once that's done and the ties are severed, it's like, okay, good luck. Go do your thing. That's been my experience in sales anyways. And that's a difficult thing because you're probably used to clear instruction and direction, and you're probably pretty good as if you had a good career in the public sector. You're probably good at following instruction. Well, now there's no instruction. So be aware of that. Be aware of the fact that it's going to require self-discipline, self-accountability, that you're going to need to invest in books and courses and conferences and conversations about how to be a better salesman. One of the ones I told you about earlier is the Selling Chronicles. That's a really good one. Zig Ziglar has great stuff on sales. Tom Hopkins, real estate, has good stuff on sales. Grant Cardone, who's like pretty over the top on a lot of things for me, still has some quality information regarding sales. But you've got to take ownership of what it is you're doing and invest in yourself. Learn how to sell. Learn human psychology. Very, very important. Learn how to communicate effectively. There's a book called, or a workbook called, the Assertiveness Workbook. Read that. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Read and go through the Assertiveness Workbook. No More Mr. Nice Guy is a good one to go through because it's going to teach you how to be assertive and not be walked over. So, yeah, that's my advice. Like get good at sales, get good at human psychology, and get good at leading yourself.
Cool. David Henderson, apart from the majority of people saying just deal with it, how do you get past the anxiety and time management? I'm currently dealing with running 3 businesses, 3 months into having 4 children, studying for a 7-hour test to upgrade my contractor's license.
Just deal with it. Look, here's the thing. I'm going to give you a real answer.
I know. Just saying that, it's true though. I mean, it is accurate. I'm going to give you a deeper answer than that here in a second. But don't discount that advice. I'm telling you, don't discount. You just deal with it, because we are resilient creatures. We are gritty. We are tough. We are resilient. We adapt well. You come from the greatest species, the most intelligent, the toughest, the smartest species to ever walk the planet. And your lineage is that of warriors and people who are extremely intelligent and wise and strong and capable, because everybody who wasn't died, so they're not your family members. The ones that survived are the smart, intelligent, strong, capable humans. And that's your lineage. That's who you are.
It's in your blood. So I actually think there's a lot to be said for you deal with it. Because what is the alternative? Breaking down, crumbling, cowering in the corner, not getting the mission accomplished? That's not who you are. It's not who your ancestors are. And it's certainly not who you're capable of being and becoming. So become somebody who is capable of dealing with that. So please don't discount that. Now, that said, start creating some plans. Start creating some strategies. Find a healthy and a productive outlet so that you can unplug periodically. Have good people in your corner. Have mentors and coaches and counselors who have gone through exactly what you're going through and enlist their help. Talk with them, communicate with them, ask them questions about how they experienced it and what they went through specifically and what practices and what strategies and planning systems did they use to get through it. How did they unplug when things got really tough and demanding? Like, what exactly did they do? I can't give you specific advice because I don't know specifically your situation. So the general advice I would say is find a specialist. Find somebody who's gone through that exact same thing, even if it only means they're 30 days ahead of you or 30 years ahead of you, and ask them, what did they do? How did they do this? How did they overcome this? Again, have your band of brothers with you who are helping you and guiding you. Go compete. Go get punched in the face. Go for a run. Do something difficult early in the morning so that it sets the tone for the rest of the day and sets the standard into how you perform and engage and overcome difficult and challenging and demanding tasks. And then remember why you're doing it. Remember why you're doing it. And when you're in the thick of things and it's difficult and challenging and a struggle, tap back into, oh yeah, it is hard, but I'm doing it because this thing, this is what's driving me. This is what's propelling me. And look and see that light at the end of the tunnel. The other thing I would say is just understand that we all have seasons, right? And sometimes those seasons just require you to get through that season, put your nose down, get your back and your hands to work, and just do it because that's what's required. That's what's required. If you want to be a man, that's the requirement. So again, not very specific advice, although I think there's some action strategies in there, but don't discount you deal with it. You have the capability of dealing with it. That's who your ancestors are, and that's who you are.
I think what's powerful around the term deal with it is it's a current action of the present. It's deal with it, like right now, what you are dealing with. And whenever I hear the term anxiety, I have a tendency to assume that we're looking a little bit into the future of things outside of our control. And we're stressed out about, well, I have this expectation. Well, what if it doesn't work? Whatever. That's not dealing with it. Dealing with it is based upon what I know now, based on what I can do right now. This is the action I'm going to take. Mm-hmm. Now, do we have an after action review and say, hey, okay, that's not working. We pivot? Sure. But guess what? You don't know any of that of the future. What you do know is what needs to be addressed right now. So focus on the present, deal with it, and then see how things pan out, and then pivot and adjust. But we get so stressed out about, oh, my current circumstance and how's it going to pan out? And what if it doesn't work or whatever? And then that's not dealing with it. That's actually just wasting time of something that's a little bit outside of your control or unknowns that are outside of your control. So dealing with it is dealing in the moment.
I like that. I tend to think the same thing about statements like handle your business or mind your business. Like handle it. Do what you need to do in order to make it work. These are other statements that people have a hard time with. Man up.
Yeah.
Don't cry. Right? Because we rush to conclusions about what that means. Somebody's like, oh, man up. Oh, you can't tell a little boy to man up. No, you actually should, because there's circumstances where like he should man up, and there are circumstances where he shouldn't cry. So give it some context, right? Like, what? Yeah. Okay, man up. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean be a dick or be misogynistic or be an asshole. Like, it's never meant that. Man up means be tough, be gritty, be resilient, be resourceful, adapt, mold, make yourself stronger and capable. That's what man up means. Well, why don't you just say that? Because it's easier to say man up. That's it. As long as you have the context. Oh, you didn't tell a kid not to cry? Yeah, you're damn right. Because there's times where a little boy and a little girl shouldn't cry.
Yep.
There's situations in life that people are going to deal with, and crying and bitching and moaning and complaining and griping is not appropriate in that circumstance. Now, there's times where it is okay to cry, and there's times where it's not okay to cry. So we got to think about what these terms mean and give them some context and think about ourselves individually. Ask ourselves, what does it mean? So when somebody says you handle it or you deal with it, okay, well, let me think on that a minute. Like, let me ponder that for a second. What does that mean? Oh, well, I could do this, and I can adapt, and I can learn new skills, and I need to figure this out. And so maybe if I figured that out, it would help. And you begin to solve your own problems. Like, I'd love to put myself out of work here with Order of Man. It won't happen. But I mean, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be a nice day where what we're doing here wasn't needed? Yeah, that'd be cool. But I don't see it happening. I can't say that it wouldn't be nice, though.
Logan McConnell, the mentality of you tell me I can't do it and I'll do it to prove you wrong, like most things, isn't bad in moderation. How does a person identify when to allow it to drive you and when it's being destructive? For example, I would be saying I can't lift X weight, but I'll push my body to a breaking point to prove I can. But at the same time, it is a good thing to have to help us use negative energy to power us forward.
Yeah, you just look at the results. If for example, what did he say as far as like lifting weights? Is that what he was talking about? Like deadlift a certain weight or something?
Yeah, that's the example, right? It's
okay.
Like, I can lift that,
but
you end up breaking your back, right?
Yeah, so let's say you want to do a 500-pound deadlift. And your brother's making fun of you. He's like, dude, you can't do 500 pounds. Like, that would crush you or whatever, right? So he's teasing you, giving you a hard time. You're like, yeah, screw you, man. Watch. And you break your back because you did something dumb. Are you more capable or less capable of lifting 500 pounds off the floor now? You're less capable because you have a broken back or you're injured. So therefore, you let that type of motivation undermine what it is you're trying to do. So be smart. That's it. Just be smart. If it's motivating you, look, we're walking a fine line of like the should-haves, right? Like, oh, but you should be motivated by this and you shouldn't be motivated by that. Who cares what you're motivated by? It doesn't matter. If your motives are pure and you're moving in the right direction, like it doesn't matter what motivates you. Just use it. Like, look, I personally, I actually like acknowledgement. I'm motivated by that. Like when people acknowledge what I do, that's motivating. Oh, but Ryan, like you shouldn't care what other people think and you shouldn't be screw you, buddy. Like if it helps me do something that's meaningful and significant, then that's the fuel I'm going to use.
Yeah.
And I don't care if I should or shouldn't, like, oh, I shouldn't be motivated by it. Well, if it's moving me in the right direction, then cool. Isn't that a good thing? It's a good thing.
Just don't be blown with the wind and realize, what your purpose and direction is what you're saying.
Well, let's take the acknowledgement thing. I can be recognized and acknowledged for the wrong reasons too.
Yeah.
So do I let my need to be acknowledged outweigh the mission? And that's where you come into a problem, right? Because now the acknowledgement becomes the priority, and therefore you start doing things that will get you maybe more recognition and acknowledgement, but aren't perfectly in line with what your mission is. So you have to have both. Okay, like I need to be self-aware of what motivates me and inspires me, whether it's acknowledgement or recognition or incentives or whatever. This is human psychology, right? And it needs to be directly tied to my purpose-driven mission. And if I'm missing one or the other, it's very easy to drift and get off course. But when you sync the two, you can ask yourself, is this type of motivation, somebody saying that I can't do it, moving me towards what I want to accomplish or further away? And that's how you know if it's good and right.
Yeah.
If it's moving you further away, oh, that's not good motivation for me. So I got to get around people in this case. If somebody deflates what I'm doing and my personality is, it doesn't happen to be, but let's just say hypothetically it is, that's deflating to me and it undermines me wanting to move forward, then I have to distance myself from negativity and move closer towards people who are going to be positive and encouraging and uplifting, because I know that's what actually moves the needle for me. So find out what works for you and use it as fuel. As long as it's moving you in the right direction, all the power to you.
Yeah, totally. And Logan, I know this is just an example, but I think your example proves a point as well, and it's slightly related. In this example, someone said you couldn't lift a weight, right? And then you go lift a weight and you break your back. That's not making you better, by the way. Making you better would be putting a plan together to increase your strength and become better at doing a deadlift. That makes you better. This Hail Mary of I'm just going to try harder and try to do something that I'm not capable of doing is not improving us. And so I think we can translate that to other aspects of our life where we might use negative energy to become better, but we need to not just like, it's not a sprint, right? Well, I'm just going to be great for a day. No. That's not the objective. The objective should be, okay, how do I improve for the long game in this area and become a better person? And unfortunately, that's a marathon in a lot of cases. So it's not going to be a burst of, oh, I proved them wrong. No, it's going to take time, and you need to look at how that benefits your character.
Right. Yeah. The terms that I use is emotional response versus emotional stimulation. Right.
like
So if you have somebody who comes to you and says, hey, what you're doing is stupid, because that sounds silly, but people actually say that. Like, what you're doing is stupid. You're a moron. Like, a real man doesn't need a man to tell him how to be a man. And then I respond emotionally to that, either verbally or through my actions. That's not going to produce a desired result.
Yeah.
But if it stimulates emotions, then I can use those emotions, to your point, to formulate a plan that will prove that individual wrong, which is exactly what we've done, right? Yeah. So be careful of responding emotionally or just allowing plans and actions and strategies to be stimulated through emotion.
I like that a lot.
You do stimulation, don't you?
Yes, that's how I wake up, and I just wait for stimulation to show up for me to decide how I'm going to show up for today. All right.
What else?
Kilo Taylor, it would be awesome if you could do something in relationship in relation to Richmond, Virginia activity today. Maybe how to train more effectively, your thoughts on recommended courses of action, best ways to prepare in case there were ever to be another war on our soil, etc. So kind of a little related back to the whole Virginia concept.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a ton of resources that have done and will continue to do a significantly better job than I will. I almost look at ourselves with Order of Man as a hub, right? And so maybe we're generalist in a lot of ways, and we talk about psychology and mindset and grit and all of these types of things. But then there's spinoffs of it, which are the experts, the subject matter experts. So yesterday I had on the podcast Clint Emerson, former Navy SEAL, New York Times bestselling author. He runs a security company. They did the president's inauguration several years ago, and he talks about how to keep yourself alive and safe and dangerous in violent encounters. Clint Emerson, 100 Deadly Skills. John Lovell with Warrior Poet Society, met him down at SHOT Show. A lot of you guys are familiar with what he's doing. We are very, very much in alignment with our mission and purpose. He focuses more on the firearms and the tactical training. We've had so many great people on the podcast. Crete Stewart is another one who I find very, very fascinating and interesting. He talks a lot about survival skills, wilderness survival, et cetera, et cetera. So they're out there, like we're not going to do all of that stuff. I just want to bring the right people in and put them in the right places. But if you are interested in firearms, training, survival, violent encounter situations, there's 3 or 4 resources right off the top of my mind that we've talked with in the last several months who I think would be great resources for what you're after. They're there. You just got to find them.
Cool. All right, Jason Thumb. I'm 50 and trying to decide on a new career. I didn't lose my job. I just feel dead inside at work. I'm good at it, and I've been doing it for 22 years. There's no more upward movement in the company. I'm trying to decide whether it's worthwhile to search for a new inspiration and stay or start a new career doing something I love doing. Will that thing I love then become a ho-hum and just a job?
It's just better to do what you've always done. It's better to be miserable from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's better just to be mediocre because the risk of doing anything different is just, it's not worth the potential like reward of it. It's just better to just like do the status quo.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, this is a silly question. Yeah. Look, I'm not trying to downplay what you're doing here, but the reason you're asking the question is because you know the damn answer to the question. If you didn't know the answer to the question, you wouldn't be asking me if you should do something that's motivating and inspiring to you. Of course you should do that. Of course you should. Like, what are you going to do in 20 years, in 25 years, you're now, 75 years old, and you're lying on your deathbed, and you're like, I'm really glad I decided to stick that miserable job out that, I was kind of good at, but I hated it. I'm really glad I decided to do that. Of course not. Of course you're not going to say that. No sane individual would say that. And look, I get it. It's scary as shit, man. You got a good job. Maybe you have a pension. Maybe your wife's whispering in your ear, like, this is safe. This is secure, honey.
Yeah,
like, let's,
don't risk.
It's okay. And so, like, it's scary now, right? Like, you're good at what you do because you've been doing it for 2 decades. That's the problem. You've been doing it so long that you've been domesticated by it. Like, you're docile because of it. And you're not reaching your full potential because you've bought into it for a very long time. So I'm glad that you're waking up to it. Now go do something meaningful and stop worrying about, will this become ho-hum? Maybe it will in 20 years. And then in 20 years, when you're 70 years old, you're like, you know what? I want to do something different. And then you do something different. Yeah, there is a risk that at some point, if you pursued something else, that at some point you would realize you don't like it or it's no longer meaningful or significant. So what?
And change again.
Change again. Does that mean like it wasn't a worthwhile pursuit? Or that you like wasted time? People say that all the time. Oh, I don't want to waste these like last 20 years. 20 years are gone, brother. They're gone. I'm not going to say they're wasted. I'm just going to say they're gone. Now what you do today is what matters. And you have 20 years of experience to draw upon. 20 years of hard work, 20 years of information gathering, 20 years of wisdom, which is the application of information. You have 20 years of that. Congratulations. You're so much further ahead than the guy who's coming out of college with no experience whatsoever. You have an advantage and you have some disadvantages. So what? Use what you got. You know the answer to the question. So go do it.
Mr. Alphabet.
I saw this one, but I wouldn't even.
Do you want to try?
No, I don't. I would, Kip. I would try, but that's your job, and I don't want to do that. So it's
copy that. Well, the minute that a name has special characters that I don't even know what they're called, I'm immediately like, I'm not gonna even try. Yeah.
I could do it, Kip. I could do it, but I'm all about teaching a man to fish, not doing the fishing for him. So I'm really just trying to empower you here.
Yeah, and me skipping your name is just deciding not to fish at all and going for a hike instead. Yeah.
Right. Going to the grocery store to get your fish.
Yeah. How to get a relationship, a long-term relationship. My problem is that I meet a girl, I hang out with her for 2 to 3 months, and then I get bored or something happens and I start looking for another one.
You want to be entertained, man. This is the problem. I hope my wife doesn't listen to this. She probably will because she doesn't listen to any of them. She'll probably listen to this one. Sometimes my wife is boring.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm boring. I'm probably more boring than she is, actually. But you know what? She still loves me. I still love her. I'm still infatuated with her. We still have a great relationship, still romantic and intimate with each other. But sometimes we're both boring. Sometimes like we'll both be reading a book. We're like, are we lame? And we both look at each other and say, yeah, we're lame. I'm like, cool. And then we drive on with being lame. Because it's like, why do you need to be entertained all the time? Should it be entertaining? Yeah. I mean, you should have fun and should be spontaneous and there should be a spark and liveliness in your relationship. But look, man, you may have fallen prey to I got to be entertained at all times. And if I'm not entertained and it's not fun and exciting and all of this risky and all of that, then it's not worth it. You've bought into that lie.
Yeah.
Because you have been entertained forever and now you're expected to be entertained. And that's a problem because the minute that you're not entertained, you lose interest and you have no focus. No focus. Man, you may have let go of a beautifully wonderful woman because you wanted to be entertained. That's something you got to consider. So stop wanting to be entertained and like look for deep, meaningful, significant satisfaction. Look, be spontaneous. If it's not her fault, maybe it's your fault. Maybe you're boring, and you're the one who's bringing the level of boringness to the relationship. Maybe she wants that, and you're not doing it, and you're thinking it's her, and she's thinking it's you, and like both of you are like, why is this boring? And then you end up splitting off because there's no excitement or fire. So like, bring it. Be creative. Find different solutions to be spontaneous and have fun. Find ways to energize yourself outside of her too. That's actually a really good strategy. It's like my wife this week, she's in the Bahamas with her girlfriend, and they're having fun. She sent me pictures of her on the beach and doing her thing, and I'm like, that's good, because she's gonna come back and she's gonna be more engaged. She's gonna be sexier. She's gonna be funner. Like, it's good. It's all good. And I do the same thing. I'm leaving next week to go spend some time with Bert Soren with Sorenex down in South Carolina with some other friends, and I got to do that for me. And then I come back into the relationship engaged, energized, and more excited about what we're doing. So you don't need to always find it in her. That's putting too much pressure on her, too many expectations on her. Like, find a way to have it outside of the relationship, and you guys will all be better off. You'll both be better off.
I can't help but maybe wonder if there's some psychological stuff going on where there's some internal dialogue after a couple months with these girls where you're adding a bunch of meaning to stuff that may not necessarily be there based upon previous scenarios. So
Sure,
maybe just
probably,
something to consider, that maybe you're bailing on those relationships before they can hurt you, and who knows what psychology might be happening there. So I don't know, something to think about at least.
That is something to consider. I would also say is, like if you're not ready to settle down, then it is okay to be in an entertaining relationship. Like, there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong. Like, if you're just in a relationship because it's exciting and fun and you're young and that's what you want to do, cool, man, get after it. But then don't simultaneously say I'm looking for a long-term relationship, right? It's like you're either looking for fun and want to have fun and you communicate that with the women you're with, or you're like, nah, I'm actually looking to settle down and get serious. And then you communicate that and let those women make the decision. Because if you find a woman, here's what a lot of guys will do. Like, I just want to settle down. I want to get comfortable. And they find this fun, exciting woman. And then they get all upset because that fun, exciting woman isn't interested in settling down, and they try to like tame her. It's like, no, man, like, enjoy the time you had with her. It was a fun moment. She's not interested in settling down. Or what they'll do is they'll lie to her. Right. So on both ends, maybe they're looking for excitement and they'll say they're looking to settle down because they know that woman is. Still a lie. Yeah. Or they're looking to settle down and the woman they know is just wanting to have a good time, but you don't want to lose that because that's fun too. And so you lie and say, oh no, I'm just after excitement, when really you're after a long-term relationship. And then you get upset when she does things that are fun and exciting and aren't in alignment with what you want, because you're lying to her. You're not communicating expectation clearly.
All right, Christian George, how do you choose a financial planner or advisor? Recommendations.
There's a good book by Dr. Daniel Crosby called The Laws of Wealth. And in that book, one of the segments is, I want to say it's maybe 15 or 20 questions on what to look for, but very, very, generally what I would say is look for, somebody who's a fiduciary, meaning they're legally bound and obligated to keep your best interest at the forefront when they're making recommendations. Ask about the way that they get compensated and paid. If they're working solely off of commissions, there's going to be a conflict of interest that's inherently built into the relationship. So, and it might be okay. We work with people who work off commission all the time, whether you're buying a car or clothes, and that's okay as long as you know what it is and where their potential conflicts lie. Just be aware of that. I would also ask them, what is their investment philosophy or approach to managing money and finances, and ask them about that. And if you agree with what they say, good, then that's a potential moving forward. If you're like, this is weird, this is off, or you get a bad feeling about it, then you just interview somebody else. And it truly is an interview, by the way. You need to be interviewing these individuals, and they need to be interviewing you. If this guy works with anyone and everyone, like, that's also a red flag. They should be working with the kind of person and the kind of clientele that you are, whether that's a career or level of wealth and income or your investment philosophy and strategy, assuming you have one. You should have one. But read a lot of good books on the subject, know what you're doing. Like, for example, I could go to a car dealership today and go buy a new car, but I would never, never in a million years go into a car dealership without doing research and homework and looking at MSRPs and looking at pricing and knowing how much they negotiate and what their strategies are. Like, I want to go in equipped with that information. So you can't absolve yourself of the responsibility of knowing money and how it works just because you're handling or hiring a financial advisor. In fact, if you do, you're going to make a bad decision about who you're hiring, and you're going to hope and pray that what they're sharing with you is right. It's not going to be right, by the way. So, like, learn, be your own advisor, and then have some other people you can come in intelligently and have discussions with and bounce ideas off of and advise you on how to lead and handle your money.
Copy.
Let's take a couple more.
All right. Thomas Williamson, the importance of work-life balance and chasing happiness rather than success and wealth.
I don't like chasing happiness. I don't like that word. Or, well, maybe it's just semantics. But when people say, oh, I want to be happy, to me, I hear I want to be free of conflict. Right? Like, I want to be sitting on the beach sipping Mai Tais and not have any responsibility or pressure. Like, who wants that? Nobody wants. I mean, maybe for an hour, that'd be nice. Like, when I go on vacation and that's what we're doing, I'm like, all right, yep, got it. I'm done. I got to go back and work because I want pressure. I want hardship. I want pushback. And so for me, it's not about chasing happiness. It's about finding and developing and articulating fulfillment. Because fulfillment is not the absence, to me, it's not the absence of hardship. It's the ability and skill set and maturity to overcome it. And look, if you think that's what happiness is, then cool, we're on the same page. And that's why I say it might just be semantics. So be careful the way you're defining happiness. And maybe you haven't even defined it. Maybe somebody else has defined it for you, or you don't really know what it means or haven't thought much about what happiness actually is. So, like, think about that first, because I can be fulfilled and not have $1 million in the bank account. Right? I can be that because I know what fulfillment looks like. And it's not just financial. It's partly financial, but it's also experiences. It's also engagement with my kids. It's also developing as a hunter and somebody who practices and trains jujitsu. Like, there's a lot of different moving parts and facets of this that bring me fulfillment and joy and satisfaction. But you have to define it first before you can start thinking about finding balance between working and, like, who said that work and or family shouldn't be fulfilling? They should both be fulfilling, and you should try to chase both of them and have both of them. And when you notice yourself getting too heavily weighted to one side or the other, pivot and make adjustments. And if you think about balancing, whether you're standing on a surfboard, I had a good conversation with Shane Dorian. He's a big wave surfer. He's absolutely incredible. We went hunting together and we talked a little bit about surfing, and you know, I think about what a surfer does. Like, he's not perfectly balanced on the board at all times.
Yeah.
Right? He's moving, he's shifting his weight, he's sliding his front foot or his back foot forward. I know nothing about surfing, by the way. And he's moving up and back, and he's like shifting, and he's doing what he needs to do in order to, like, find that perfect balance based on external circumstances, in this case, the wave and what the wave is doing and what he wants to do relative to the wave. Same thing with our lives is, like, there's no homeostasis where we're like, oh, I found it.
I'm balanced.
I found the perfect formula.
Yeah.
I'm balanced. And then you're balanced for eternity. No, it's like, oh, you know what? Man, my kid broke his arm. I probably ought to spend a little more time with him today. Or, oh, there's a hunt coming up. So, like, I'm not going to be able to spend time with my family, but I'm going to be here. Oh, but maybe I can put in a few more hours with my family before I leave because, you know, I want to get that time into and let them know they're a priority as well. So you're, like, constantly shifting and moving and messing with your schedule and time in order to fulfill your responsibilities, your obligations, and what brings you joy and fulfillment.
I love it. I have a hard stop at the top of the hour. You
let's wrap it up then, man.
Okay.
Yep. Let's wrap it up.
Let's do this. Talking about fulfillment, work-life balance.
Yeah, you're so out of balance, man. You can't even have a simple phone call with a friend. Like, hey, dude, like, I mean, I'd love to talk with you, a buddy of mine that we've known each other for years, but, like, I got other things I got to do. I see how it is, man. It's cool.
I got priorities. I'm really busy. I'm busy. Really busy. All right.
We should
join
have
us.
some sort of a like a patch or an award that we give to people who want to wear the badge of honor of busyness. And like it's all about, it's totally making fun of them. I mean, that's the whole goal of it.
Has to be have a funny tagline.
Right. So if you say I'm busy, it's like, congratulations, you win the busyness badge of honor, as if that's something that we should want to wear.
Totally.
So you win the busyness badge of honor today, Kip. Congratulations.
Awesome. I'll wear it proudly.
All right. Bring us home, man.
Okay. All right. So to submit your questions for future AMAs, join us on facebook.com/group/orderman. That's our private Facebook group. Or you can also submit questions and join us within the Iron Council. That's our exclusive brotherhood. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council. We did have some additional spots still open for you for you guys that are interested in the Legacy event, June 11th through the 14th, this coming summer. For fathers and sons, boys need to be between the ages of 8 and 15 years old. To learn more, go to orderofman.com/legacy. And as always, support the podcast. I think something that you said earlier, Ryan, about, what we're trying to do, the mission, right? If you're tired of being the silent majority, and you want to actually speak out around, your viewpoints, and you agree with the message that is being taught here, you can do that by subscribing to the podcast, sharing the YouTube videos that get posted weekly, if not, multiple times a week, as well as, representing the Order of Man by getting some stuff from the store, wallets, t-shirts, decals for your car. And then you guys that are on the path of becoming better, get your hands on the battle planner. You can find all those things at store.orderofman.com. And of course, follow Mr. Mickler at Twitter or on Instagram at Ryan Mickler. That's RyanMichler. Mitchler.
Mitchler. Hey, however you can find me. If that helps you find it, then by all means. I've been called significantly worse than Mitchler.
Yeah, just don't Google his name.
Why?
Might find some stuff that you don't want to find.
Why? What are you going to find, Kip?
I don't know.
Apparently you're telling us not to Google it. So like apparently you've been looking at my name, so.
Yeah. Well, I don't see enough of you, so I have to Google you to, look at your beautiful mane.
I get it. We're going to be out there in your neck of the woods here in the next couple of weeks, so we'll sync up.
All right. Sounds good. Get some training.
All right, guys. Yeah, let's do it. It'd be cool. All right, guys. Appreciate you. Hopefully we got some questions answered and had some fun while we were doing it. Appreciate you guys being on the path and leading us and inspiring us to be better men ourselves. We will be back on Friday. I've got a very interesting perspective on ego and why it can be good, but how to ensure that it doesn't overtake your personality and how you show up and the results that you're producing. So it's going to be an interesting one. I had a great conversation with a friend his name is also Kip. And we talked about this and hashed some out. So it's pretty cool. That'll be on Friday. Just make sure you subscribe. All right, guys, we'll be back then. Go out there, take action, become the you are meant to be.